Would it make you feel any better if I didn't want you to do this?
Yeah, much.
Then feel...
Spoilers. The following video is mostly intended for humor. I nitpick, make jokes, and generally just have fun pointing out things that don't quite add up. That said, I may make a few actually valid points along the way. I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Mission Impossible 2, the 2000 action spy sequel that continues the trend of replacing almost every single character with somebody not from the TV show it's allegedly based on. So how this works is I'm going to go through the movie and point out all the interesting things that I can find in Mission Impossible 2. So the movie starts off with the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich injecting himself with the Chimera virus after saying they were looking for the hero Bellerophon. Both Chimera and Bellerophon are references to Greek mythology. The Chimera was a fire-breathing multi-animal monster that terrorized Kyra and Lycia until she was slain by the hero Bellerophon. But in biology, a chimera is when a person has two distinctly different sets of DNA. People with chimerism don't always show it in obvious ways, but it can cause things like different color eyes or hair, and in some cases, genital abnormalities. Anyway, the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich is on a plane to Atlanta with Dimitri, but Dimitri looks and talks like Ethan Hunt. I mean, it's not impossible, but the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich also refers to him as an old friend. So surely at some point in their relationship, the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich either figured out or at least heavily suspects that Dimitri isn't really Dimitri. And then it turns out that Dimitri isn't really Ethan Hunt either. He's the no-good, double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose who schemed the plan to steal the virus and the cure from the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich. So Thomas Cruise Mapotha IV has become well known for doing his own crazy stunts in movies. But if you pause at just the right moment and look really carefully, you can tell that in this particular scene, Tom Cruise did in fact use a stunt double. Now speaking of doubles, the song playing in this scene is called Aiko Aiko by Zap Mama. It's a reworked version of Aiko Aiko that was used in the 1988 Tom Cruise movie Rain Man. Though the original version of the song was actually called Jacko Mo by James Crawford, released in 1953. So these guys had the mission glasses inside the rocket gun ready to fire it, okay? But how would they have known that by the time they arrive, Ethan would be at the top of the mountain? What happens if they get there and Ethan is only halfway up the mountain? Do they just hover around burning fuel, waiting for Ethan to get to the top and then fire the mission rocket? Or do they land a helicopter, take the mission out of the rocket and just hand it to Ethan when he gets to the top? And then they would have went all that way and don't even get to fire a rocket. Anyway.
Morning, Mr. Hunt. Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Did you notice there was no mission preamble? No, the man you're looking at is the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich, who was blah 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 blah. None of that. Just went straight to your mission should you choose to accept it. Furthermore, if Naya Nordorf-Hall is a highly capable professional thief, then she can't also be referred to as a civilian in this context since the mission is about retrieving stolen goods. Also, it took 7 seconds for the message to self-destruct. You know, it must be really hard to be an actor.
I don't do laundry. Cook.
Oh, so that's what inspired that Cardi B song. Alright, okay, so I know Ethan was told that he must recruit Naya Nordorf-Hall, but surely someone who specializes in doing things that others deem impossible would know that calling a woman while following her in a car, then calling her again after she hung up, after she already rejected your initial offer, is just harassment. Well, actually, since this is set in 1999 and they're currently in Spain, this kind of behavior is technically legal. Spain didn't have an official stalking law until 2015. Spain did, however, have driver seatbelt laws back in 1999, so both Ethan and Naya should have been fined for this. Also, this movie came out a year before The Fast and Furious, so in case you wanted to know who to blame, there you go. So here's the thing, the CIA has a rule about operatives forming romantic or sexual relationships with individuals subject to a foreign power. So Naya being a British national and a professional thief, this relationship is almost certainly not getting the green light. That said, Ethan Hunt is not CIA, he's IMF. So just like Jim Phelps before him in the first movie, I guess these guys just think with their dicks. I mean, I'm just saying, if they're gonna have a Limp Bizkit song in this movie, probably should have went with I did it all for the nookie instead. By the way, speaking of how hard it is to be an actor, Hollywood and porn are the only industries where it's perfectly acceptable to be asked to make out with your boss and pretend to like it. So it turns out the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose was an IMF agent sent to accompany the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich. But why send Ambrose? I mean, I know Swanbeck said they couldn't get a hold of Ethan, but it seems that IMF had their reservations about Ambrose to begin with. Did they really have no other choice? They couldn't ask the CIA for a favor? They really just went with the single worst option that they already knew was likely a bad idea just because he was available? Really?
She's got no training for this kind of thing.
But to go to bed with a man and lie to him, she's a woman. She's got all the training she needs.
This film could not be made today.
Thinking that somewhere in the course of business this got personal as well as physical.
Would it make you feel any better if I didn't want you to do this?
Yeah, much.
Then feel better!
So she's a professional thief that has previously been involved with a spy, and he's a spy that has experience with women being used to get information. Why are either of them acting like this is their first time? And no, I don't buy the whole, but they love each other. It's barely been a day at this point. And granted, a little speculation here, but this is probably not the first time a professional thief and a spy have shagged someone they just met. They have all that space, and yet they still chose to stick a syringe in her tattoo. In the first movie, the helicopter pilot was called Franz Krieger, Krieger being a German name meaning soldier or mercenary, which is exactly what Franz turned out to be. Now in this movie, the helicopter pilot is called Billy Bird, and Bird is a Scottish name meaning poet or one who sings, which should mean this movie is going to be part musical. Also, these are kangaroos. Kangaroos are marsupials. Marsupials give birth to underdeveloped babies called joeys which, while blind and deaf, crawl into their mother's pouches where they stay until fully developed. Incidentally, this is pretty much how Mission Impossible 2 was made. After taking over the writing duties, Robert Towne was basically given a bunch of previously planned action sequences and told, figure out a story to make it make sense, which could be amongst the reasons we get things like this.
Satellite doesn't work as fast as I do.
Yeah, I heard about you, Luther.
I mean, it seems like an odd thing to say now, after you've just been in a whole helicopter ride with this guy. Of course you've heard about him. But you know, for anyone watching that didn't see the first movie, it helps to establish Luther as a computer hacking genius. So this image is supposed to be of Bellerophon slaying the Chimera. However, Bellerophon wasn't a soldier, so he wouldn't have been in that armor. Also, Bellerophon kills the Chimera while riding Pegasus, and that's no-winged horses, not Pegasus.
And I may or may not know why she thinks she's here, but I'm willing to take the risk because I am gagging for it.
Here's the thing about this scene. I mean, I get that it's supposed to show that the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose is a bit unhinged, but he can hear himself. Right? Craig Agnew and Shane Dye are real Australian horse jockeys. Also, Glenn Boss, and this is probably supposed to be Corey Brown, are Australian horse jockeys too. And then Larry V. Cassidy, also a real horse jockey, but the only one from New Zealand. And by the way, none of them are actually in this movie. What is it with spy movies where someone always turns their head at the exact opportune moment for the spies to get a good look? I mean, this guy's a crooked rich prick dealing with a no-good double-crossing swindler and didn't think maybe concealing his face as much as possible might be a good idea. Anyway, Naya pickpockets the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose and puts the envelope under her left arm. Then, when she's about to walk away, the envelope disappears. Then, when Ambrose calls out to Naya, the envelope reappears, but it's behind her. So, putting the clear editing goof to the side, if the envelope was supposed to be sticking out behind her, then shouldn't the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose have seen it? It's always weird in movies when they have someone get really tough with people that can't do anything to them. But the thing is, we already know Stamp is a bitch. Furthermore, why is no one calling security? You see, this is why victims of abuse don't don't always speak up. So I'm just gonna ignore the fact that Luther just so happened to have a camera with a card slot matching the cards that the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose had, even though they didn't know that he had it. Cause end of the day, they're spies. They probably carry around a bunch of different equipment just anyway. However, if in this Mission Impossible 2 world they have digital cameras that can transmit a signal, surely they have digital cameras that can just copy the disc. Probably would have been a lot quicker too. What's interesting though is that in 1999 there were cameras that could transmit a video signal, but they weren't small handheld devices, they were more for security surveillance. And it wasn't so much that you couldn't copy from a card to the internal memory, more the fact that most, if not all, digital cameras back then just didn't have enough internal memory to record much. Anyway, turns out the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose was showing the crooked rich prick McCloy images of how Chimera infected Gradsky. But these images are from Biosite, the company that the crooked rich prick McCloy runs. So why would the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose be showing the crooked rich prick McCloy images from his own company? Wouldn't the crooked rich prick McCloy know about Gradsky already? Furthermore, why are they doing this in public? This is 1999. They have email, or if you want to be more secure, TLS/SSL, or considering it's possibly a larger file, SFTP existed in 1999 too.
Take care of the Nikorovich memory card.
Where is it?
In my jacket pocket. My right jacket pocket.
So I get that this is to emphasize that the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose knows Naya is an IMF plant, but dude just took off his jacket, put it down, walked away from it, then told Stamp to take the card out of that same jacket. All this really does is emphasize how much of a bitch Hugh Stamp is. Also, I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is actually the correct way to walk down a staircase. Toes pointing forward and heel against the step. Blaze did it better. Anyway, the crooked rich prick McCloy just said that they were splicing together strains of influenza to try to cure all influenza, but made an oopsie and created the Chimera virus instead. Which makes sense, but it's also kind of a contradiction to what the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich said earlier, which is that they were looking for the hero Bellerophon, and because of that, they needed to create the virus Chimera. Now, if we assume the mad scientist Dr. Nekovich meant they were looking for the cure for influenza when he said they were looking for the hero Bellerophon, then Bellerophon wouldn't be the cure for Chimera. It wouldn't be the cure for anything, because it failed. Once they accidentally created Chimera, they would have had to start again to create the cure for that. Now, to be fair, I guess they could just name the new cure Bellerophon anyway, but why name it after a failed experiment? Also, why is the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose upset Naya was playing him? Stamp warned him about her and is all like, I wanted to risk it all for the nookie because I'm gagging for it. And now he's crying? Bro, this is your fault. We are now over 1 hour and 15 minutes into the movie and finally somebody gets shot. And no, the one about 5 minutes ago don't count because that was off camera. I mean, seriously, I was beginning to forget this is a John Woo movie. I swear this has got to be a record for the longest time John Woo has gone without shooting somebody. And before somebody's all like, actually, some of his early films didn't have any guns at all. Yeah, well, anyway. This is a John Woo movie. This is a John Woo movie.
She wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Hunt.
Actually, she's there because of Swanbeck, and Ambrose being former IMF really should know that.
You can be assured of going down in history as a typhoid Mary of Oz.
So Typhoid Mary, or Mary Mallon, was a cook during the early 20th century that infected between 51 and 122 people with typhoid. She was quarantined in 1907 and released in 1910 under the agreement she would stop working as a cook and take reasonable steps to not infect anyone else. And then after some years, not only did she start working as a cook again under a fake name, she also worked in a hospital. For her efforts, she was quarantined again in 1915, and with the exception of some authorized day trips, she remained in quarantine until she died of pneumonia in 1938.
Well then, you've got both the virus and the antivirus, which means I've got 30 million for you.
Not exactly.
What do you want?
Stock options to be a little more precise.
Okay, so the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose is doing this to buy stock options in buyer sites, and although the explanation is a little oversimplified for the movie, it's actually a pretty solid plan. It basically means for a small fee of 30 million, Ambrose would then have the option to buy 48 million shares, assuming 100 shares per options contract. And to buy 480,000 options contracts for 30 million would be significantly cheaper than just buying 48 million shares at $31 each. But here's the thing, where did 30 million come from? Wasn't the agreed price 37 million pounds? It's not the exchange rate, since in 1999, 37 million pounds would have been around 92.5 million Australian dollars, or about 55.5 million US dollars. So basically, the crooked rich prick McCloy just dropped the price and the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose said nothing. Also, this whole plan is very dependent on infected people wanting to buy the cure. I mean, let's keep it real. We've all seen examples of people not going to the hospital or not staying in quarantine when they really should be. A dove. Just in case you needed another reminder, this is a John Woo movie. But why would the dove cooing be an alert for Stamp? It really doesn't mean anything. Furthermore, the face swap that Ethan did with Stamp has gotta be the least surprising face swap ever. This whole movie has shown Stamp to be nothing but a tough talking bitch.
Punk put a hole in my Versace.
Just a few years prior, somebody put a hole in Versace. Also, I know bad guy aim is a thing, but come on. This whole chase scene is pretty cool though, and apparently partly inspired Sons of Anarchy. But here's the thing, the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose is riding a Triumph Daytona 955i, and if you look at the tires here, they're different from the tires here. So, when did the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose have time to change his tires? I ain't mad at it. To be honest, it's actually a good idea to change your tires based on the type of terrain you're riding on. I would just like to know how he was able to fit in a tire replacement during a motorbike chase. Also, when they jump off the motorbikes towards each other like Neo and Agent Smith, they collide and then fall towards the ground, of which there is plenty beneath them. But then the camera cuts and all of a sudden they're flying sideways off a cliff. I do like this fight scene though, even though I don't believe Ethan Hunt beats the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose. Nah, I'm not buying that at all. Mainly because Ambrose is Scottish, and Scottish people wear kilts and throw tree trunks for sport. Meanwhile, Ethan Hunt fights like he stayed up all night watching WWF and playing Tekken 3. Anyway, the movie ends with the no-good double-crossing swindler Sean Ambrose getting killed after coming back for one last scare, and Ethan and Luther getting the Bellerophon cure to Naya so that Ethan and Naya can live happily ever after. Well, at least until Thandaway Newton decided she didn't want to go through all that again. And why is Metallica's I Disappear playing during the end credits? Was this punishment for what they said about Napster? I Disappear was the first and still to this day the only song that Metallica have ever written for a movie. I mean, not including their own documentary. And they put it on their end credits when literally everyone actually disappears? The disrespect. Also, speaking of disappearing, this was the last single Jason Newsted recorded with Metallica, and as of around 2019, Rob Trujillo has been Metallica's longest serving bassist. You feel old yet? But that's what I think of Mission Impossible 2. What do you think of Mission Impossible 2? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.